Well, I'm delighted to be joined by Niall McKay, Professional Head for Civils and Structures, Operations and Maintenance at AtkinsRéalis. Niall, that's a mouthful. Love to hear about what your team does.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really are focused on existing infrastructure. So in my role as professional head, I sit on the AtkinsRéalis technical leadership group, and this is all about sort of technical assurance and bringing the right tools and techniques to our teams across the UK and globally. So in terms of sort of operations and maintenance specifically, this is looking at civil structures and bridges. It cuts across kind of highways and rail sort of environments and other transportation networks as needed. But yeah, very much looking at existing assets.
Right, thank you. And what role does data have in looking after those existing assets?
It kind of starts, I mean, in the whole kind of asset management life cycle. I've historically I've been involved a lot with kind of inspection work. So obviously there's a lot of data that the inspection process produces. This helps clients kind of manage infrastructure. It helps them sort of intervene when they need to. And generally kind of keep networks kind of safe for use and fit for purpose, as is the requirement. Yeah, there's not just inspections, so we get involved in assessment work as well. So in terms of sort of network management, knowing which structures need weight restrictions, when there are kind of abnormal load movement requests, knowing which structures can be used, which can't, how they can be used and how they can't. So data plays a big part, obviously, in that side of things. Kind of also looking at monitoring as well, structural health monitoring. So where structures are known to be substandard, what we might need to understand a bit more about them, about the behaviour, and this would sort of help to sort of direct any particular intervention. But yeah, the whole concept of structural health monitoring is, I think it's probably underutilized at the moment. I think there's probably a move towards sort of taking the data that comes from the inspection process and just fixing it, rather than kind of looking at things and thinking, do we need to fix it?
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of an area that we could probably improve on. Yeah, and it's our job to kind of advise sort of clients, advise asset owners on the best way of doing that, really.
Right. So there's kind of those two sources of data, the inspections and the monitoring. And I like the challenge is actually we might be doing works that aren't necessary because it just goes from inspections straight to the intervention rather than actually prioritizing that. And so when we've got really constrained resources, are we actually spending the money in the right places? So
absolutely, yeah.
So you're working with a lot of data. What challenges do you have with that data in terms of doing those assessments and that support that you give to clients?
I guess the first challenge is data quality. Is the data correct? And kind of being able to sort of apply that in practice. We rely heavily on it. So if it's specific defects, say from an inspection, what is the root cause of that defect? Has the the information that we have to hand, is it correct? Is it accurate? Data that has been used previously as well. So this might be data that has been collected from other sources where we've not really been involved with it, but we need to kind of take a step back. For a particular structure, for instance, how is that previously performed? How is that kind of directing sort of what we're saying about it now?
Yeah.
And you know, I've seen many examples of where structures have kind of self-healed.
Yeah.
So defects that may well have been picked up previously in more recent sort of inspection work potentially have gone missing without any kind of maintenance records to say that it has been corrected. So it kind of, and that can potentially reduce your confidence in the data that you have to hand. So it's really kind of about having that challenging mindset to sort of say, yeah, how good is this data?
Mm.
I think the other sort of key part of it is competency. It's competency of the individual who is looking at the data. You know,
Mm-hmm.
can they read between the lines? Can they identify trends? Can they, in an inspection context again, can they identify root causes?
Yeah.
And not just kind of take what they see at face value, but kind of question what they see, say, how might that have occurred?
What role do you see AI having in supporting the decision making going forward?
Right. So I think in terms of AI, it's that sort of ability to well, one, increase productivity. So this
Mm-hmm.
is I think for me, it is about being able to process sort of large quantities of data
Yeah.
and provide more meaningful suggestions to the experienced engineer inspector. Yeah, you know, it's being able to kind of look at, say, portfolios of assets and sort of, you know, identify sort of common problems, common traits with specific types of structure, and do that really, really quickly. Um, I kind of always saw that kind of the use of AI as being almost like a triage for, you know, similar to what you would have in your hospital appointment. You know, you'd go in, you'd have an initial triage. They're not going to diagnose you. They're going to kind of tell you what they see, and then it would be a deeper dive to kind of get to the root cause of the problem. And I kind of see that the same way as with bridges and with other structural assets, is that AI would provide that triage. It would look at everything available, and it would make some suggestions as to what might be the issue here. And then it is up to the kind of the inspector, the engineer, to kind of look at that and kind of say, yes, I think that is, you know, that's potentially the root cause. So, you know, what the AI system is telling me is kind of that's the right line of inquiry, whereas some of the other lines of inquiry, they need to be obviously be able to kind of challenge what the machine is telling them
Mm-hmm.
effectively. So yeah, I would say massively increasing productivity, trend analysis. There are probably many other sort of advantages as well of AI, but yeah, it's yeah, I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, we've talked about some of the challenges around data quality and yeah, I think if I could boil it down, the reliability of the data that you have, this kind of idea of self-healing bridges, one inspector gives
Yeah,
a severity 4, the next one comes a 2. Is it what's the thing that's
yeah,
actually happening there? And then the detail, the depth of that data in terms of both over time and kind of what's currently present. The
absolutely.
idea of triage then becomes I agree with you, Niall, in terms of triage being the kind of the key thing. We don't want to replace humans in decision making. It's very much about supporting that, and that a big part of that is just filtering the noise and saying these are the ones that demand your attention.
Yeah,
Of in these 10 300-page inspection reports from the past, here are the pertinent points for you to work with. And you're obviously working a lot with data today, and we've talked about opportunities for AI. Um, what do you think the transition looks like from how we work today to that triage enabled world?
oh, good question. I've kind of thought about this quite a lot because I think there's a nervousness, I think, within industry. But there's several things that kind of affect the kind of use of AI. One, it's kind of I don't want to replace the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to replace that kind of experience. We're in danger of doing that. I think the other is cost. So in terms of the tools and the processes to use, how does that impact on my year-to-year budget?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, particularly when asset owners' budgets are generally restricted.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of sort of the conversations that I've been having with clients with AI, I've seen a certain amount of interest in it. It's inconsistent, but I have seen a certain amount of interest in it, and anything that they can, I don't want to say get for free, but get for a reduced cost. Because I think we're at sort of an exploratory stage of the journey at the moment. So I think lots of clients are kind of looking for that proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
And with budgets restricted, they don't want to pay for it effectively. So I think there is definitely something around there about sort of balancing budgets with, say, research and development opportunities. AtkinsRéalis have been involved with the Structures Moonshot project just recently. You probably heard quite a lot of that, and that was actually quite a turnkey project insofar as it was very R&D. It was sort of expenditure from National Highways to try and really sort of look at what the art of the possible was.
Yeah.
And it has been massive. Yeah, I mean, it's these sorts of projects that are going to change sort of how we do things, and they're going to be able to improve productivity. They're going to be able to sort of effectively get much better value for clients, for asset owners, by just doing things differently. So I think R&D expenditure is definitely something that needs to be looked at. I think in hand with that, it's that link up with academia. So there are lots of research opportunities out there, lots of sort of very willing sort of environments, academic environments, that we're able to kind of explore the art of the possible again. And obviously AI has been specifically in focus over, well, probably a few years now, which is kind of leading us to where we are as an industry now. So I think that's kind of the roadmap. We just need to do more of it. I think in terms of what we need as an industry to move forward with AI, it's a framework. It's a strategic framework of how we use AI, how to sense check output, dealing with IP issues. So obviously there's that kind of commercial minefield that we've kind of got going there. So yeah, dealing with IP issues, the sensitivity of the information. So when we're actually collecting this information, how is it stored? How protected is it? Clients are very nervous about sort of, and rightly so, very nervous about infrastructure data. And yeah, I think that the whole kind of storage of that information and data is very much an issue. I like the concept of a data lake. So obviously our clients, every client has got a lot of data, and this can all help in terms of that machine learning process. But I think where we are at the moment is that there's a lot of sort of ring fencing of data. And that in itself is going to slow things down in terms of AI. So I would like to try and see sort of like a more open access in a controlled way, because obviously it needs to be sort of available to the people it needs to be available to. But yeah, this whole concept of a data lake, I think, is quite an interesting one. Is where we can collect all the data at a kind of a material level, at a structural level, and really kind of take that machine learning on enhance that kind of considerably. So yeah, and I guess it's just sort of there's a mindset thing. in terms of AI. So I think I'd like to see industry just being curious.
Yeah.
Just try it sort of until we actually start using it, until we actually start sort of really sort of, it might not be a fully finished product, but until we start using it, we're not going to be able to kind of look at that continual improvement process in any degree. So I think once we actually start being curious, and there's a bit of a leap of faith as well. And if we take that leap of faith, I think we will get to a much better position much more quickly.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. It was interesting you started with the kind of the resource constraints that the sector faces, and the really challenging budgetary environment that we're in, with the opportunity and the productivity. I think there's probably another angle to that, which is how can we use the data to express risk better, so that we can unlock the budgets that are actually needed to keep going. Yeah. So I think if we can get the data and the working, that gives the potential to actually unlock more funding to do the work that's needed, rather than just being this kind of state of managed decline basically that we're in, and we're kind of managing different risks. So I don't know if that resonates as a kind of a potential outcome.
It does, yeah. It's that kind of targeted intervention, isn't it? I think it kind of takes me back to what I said at the start, in terms of, I think probably too often we may intervene when we don't necessarily have to. Which, particularly when you intervene, it tends to be sort of the larger sums of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think if we can sort of just really sort of just go through that process of targeted intervention, AI can really help towards that. For, like you say, from a risk-based perspective, network management generally, how often we might see sort of repairs on sort of structures which are sort of, they might be fairly robust. They've just had a sort of a poor sort of inspection potentially, that's kind of looked at the structure individually, but not necessarily in the context of the whole network as being managed. So yeah, just a little bit more in terms of targeted intervention should hopefully release a little bit more in terms of budgets. But yeah.
No, thank you. That's been really insightful. Is there anything else you'd like to share whilst we're here today?
I think it just what I mentioned before. I think it's I think we're at a bit of a turning point as an industry. There's a lot of talk about use of AI at the moment. I think just that again, that I guess it's a bit of a plea just to be a little bit more curious. There's going to be that leap of faith. Let's start trying to use this, because I think when we get to that point, we'll start seeing things sort of taking shape much more rapidly. So it's certainly something that I'm going to be kind of looking at.
Right. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time today, and I'm sure really useful insights.
Cool. All right. Cheers, Tom.
Thank you.